You're listening to Fish Out of Water, the podcast where feeling out of place becomes the start of something new. Dive in with us. Let's explore stories, insights, and real conversations that help you swim forward with purpose.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Fish Out of Water, season 2. Woohoo! I'm so excited. I've been excited since the beginning of the season. I think you too, Brett, feel the same way. We kind of rushed through our last episode without jumping in starting with the welcome and so on. But we were so excited to get going on the actual temperament styles.
I've been like, this is at the very core of a lot of what I do and work at. And I just get really, really excited about talking about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, you've been talking to me about this stuff since early 2000s, mid early 2000s, if you like 2006, 2007, and seeing your journey through learning and becoming more and more comfortable. And as much as you've been talking about it from before, I've still seen development in how you deliver on this stuff. So I know this is definitely your passion. So, and as I've been learning about it, it certainly has grown in my heart and my desire to share with people about these temperament styles, because I have found it personally very freeing as I understand things more and more in depth, in the breadth of what things are covered in the way of personality, temperament, how you view people around you, and so on. This is all stuff that we've been talking about, so it's not new language. But today, what we're going to talk about is the intentional style. So when connection becomes the current, that's what it is today. So we're going to be naming how intentional people move and what shifts them in and out of their fears. And I think the key that we want people to come away with today, I just want to put that out there from the start, is that intentional people, or people who operate in the intentional core temperament, are expressive by design. I think this is a huge thing in understanding who they are, which we're going to dive into. So we're going to focus on awareness of relational energy. The second thing is going to be authentic presence. And the third thing is going to be emotional resonance. So that's our pathway for today. We're sharing with you, hopefully, so we can stay on topic. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, okay. I need to stop you right there, because I think staying on topic, I mean, really, it's all on topic because it's the things that we love and we love talking about. The question is, will it be valuable? And that's our ultimate hope and our ultimate goal, is that what we're bringing through the life process, the lenses of our lives, is the goal. Is that, can we bring this in a way that's both relational, educational, and developmental, that there is an invitation for you, the listener, to join us in the journey, because we're not here to be in front of, we're here to be alongside.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I hope that as I'm talking, and I do have a tendency to talk a lot, but as you hear me, hear the coach side of me. Hear not telling you what you should or shouldn't do, but, well, how if we navigate to this, or how do we, if we navigate to that? I'm here for the ride. I'm here for the journey. And I think that the remembrance that when we talk about the word fear, we're not talking about that which threatens you. We're talking about there's a space within each of us that's just a little bit of a gap. It's the space that when we're operating in this context, if we're truly, genuinely, authentically moving in our core strength, the idea that the intentional person is seeking connection. Last episode, we talked about the reflective is looking for and seeking clarity, while the supportive is looking for steadiness, is looking for balance, and that the empowered is looking for direction. Now, they're looking, all of us are looking for it, but we're also the ingredient to bring it as well. I don't know why I just all of a sudden got this image in my head, but I was thinking about the story of the Princess and the Pea. And Lisa, as you opened up and you were talking about like the breadth of everything that we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
but I saw it as like this upside down triangle, and that our core temperament is the very bottom peak, and then it grows out from there. And
Mm-hmm.
then as we blossom in our communal experiences, this is where the fullness of who we are originate from.
Yeah. And what's very interesting too is, I don't know if I'm interpreting this correctly, so, help to steer me back, but, the picture of, that upside down triangle, you can tip either way,
Mm,
depending on how
yeah,
you react to things, right? And so it's finding that place of balance and center.
yeah.
So that's actually a really cool analogy there that you brought forward. Um, okay, Brett, we need to move into something, and my brain has already moved forward to something that's not part of this. We're talking about articulating our fears, being able to articulate our fears and empowering our movements from these fears, and moving it from that to intentional or natural motivation, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when we are looking at this intentional person, they're showing up in a bunch of different ways, right?
Hmm.
So we have intentional people, they are driven. I'm going to use that very strongly, through connection. They're
Hmm.
that favorite person in the room, or, they are going and shaking everybody's hand and having what seems like a really good heart to heart conversation, like clapping each other on the back or whatever. When the conversation is done, they move to the next person and they're doing the same thing all over again. High
Hmm.
energy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I was saying to you when we were talking about this that uh, you had mentioned that they their natural motivation is shared presence. Those are the words that you had used, and relational affirmation. And I was just thinking about, my goodness, if I think about the intentional people that I know, they are notorious. I'm using the words for the people I know as who are intentionals for just using words of affirmation left, right, and center. Oh, I'm so glad that I met you, and what you're doing is so cool, or um, we should meet up and discuss this more, or whatever. Like, just over and over and over again. And you said something that it hadn't even crossed my mind. And you're like, be careful though when you see that, because that does not mean that particular person, that their love language or the way that they receive affection is actually words of affirmation, right? Can
Hmm.
you talk about
Hmm.
that a little bit? Because I think that's really important to recognize, because as a person who's not intentional, when I meet somebody who's engaging with me that way, I'm like, okay, so, this is how I'm going to win them over. I got to be nice back to them and, match their energy. And like, that's overwhelming for me at times, let's be honest. But can you
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. And so I think that what we're trying to refrain from is developing this and or kind of responses. If you
Okay.
are, you must be this. And the danger is we then make an assumption in regards to how do I connect with that person. And there's the in any relationship, we refer to it as the honeymoon period. Everything's going great, but then all of a sudden things start to creep in and things start degrading, and you don't know why. You don't understand
Mm,
what's happening. Why is this all of a sudden shifting? When in fact, at the very beginning, the fuel tanks were full, and we've now been on this road trip for a bit, and my tank's running dry, and I don't have the same amount of fuel as you did. So, or I'm using more fuel than you, and so now all of a sudden I'm stuck on the side of the road, but you've left or you've taken off. So the danger becomes that we don't want to make an assumption in regards to the intentional or even the supportive or the empowered or the reflective. We want to allow the communal experience to speak in. And I think that as coaches, being alongside an individual when we do a lot of the things that we battle against is the self-directed learning, because somebody will learn in isolation or learn within their echo chamber. They don't actually have a clear sense necessarily, because no one's asking them hard questions. Well, why are you intentional and not empowering? Because
Yeah.
that individual, and we met someone this morning. We met
Yes.
a young lady this morning who was just, oh my goodness, anything you do, please come tell me all about it, because I can't wait to support you,
Yeah.
which sounds super, super intentional.
Yeah, and I had to turn to you afterwards and say, Brett, how do I take this person? Because it was so much. It
It was
was,
it was it was a
yeah,
lot.
yeah,
And then, was it the longing and the desire of their heart, or was it the moment in the experience where, and I think I used the word, it's cementing the relationship.
yeah,
The likelihood of a relationship blossoming with this person, if I am not in pursuit, is fairly limited,
right.
because the intentional person is moving from me and you to the next person and bringing that similar kind of energy.
Hmm.
They're looking for the reciprocation.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're looking for the callback. They want someone to now come and say, yes, I loved what you brought to the table and I want more of it.
Hmm.
And this is where sometimes the intentional looks very scattered.
Yeah.
They look like they don't have any powers in regards to attention to detail. We know a few of those too.
Yeah, and that's why I'm shaking my head and not really saying anything because I as a sup I'm a supportive. So as a supportive, I want to be there. Like, how can I help you? How can I bring stability and like a firm foundation, if you will, to how we move together in relationship and whatever it is the situation prescribes. And so when I meet intentional people, it there's always a point where I come to a place where I'm like, okay, now what? Because you've already moved on to the next person or the next thing, and I'm trying to like get you grounded here because that's the way that I'm wired, right?
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
so I can totally relate to what you just said of intentionals can sometimes seem scattered or not detail oriented. I mean, maybe there are, I just haven't met them yet.
mm-hmm,
So, I don't know the world.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, nor could I handle knowing the world. Bless them. But that's something that I have to think about as a coach, for example, when I'm dealing with people. And you mentioned this a minute or two ago, just where as a coach, talking with people about where they stand, where they exist in their core temperament. You mentioned why they do the things that they do, but the coaching part of it is all about finding out what are the intentions, where are you hoping to go from this, gap are you trying to fill by operating in this manner, and through the questioning and the answers and so on, the end results can be very surprising, not just to me as a coach, more
Mm-hmm.
so to the individual that I'm coaching. I think you've probably had this, probably, I know you've had this experience too, where just asking these open-ended questions with no idea where things are going to go and people start talking and answering like, oh, I never thought about that before, and they start responding and all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, I never saw that before, wow. And it's the biggest thing in the world to them. To you it's just information, but to them it's this huge blossoming of a world that's they can now look at in a slightly different manner,
Hmm.
which is freedom. I'm going to use that word here. There's a
Well, I,
freedom
I
in that,
think
right?
in our roadmap, it's the fear to this motivation.
Right.
That freedom is I'm unrestrained. I'm not trying to become something I'm not.
Right.
The idea that the intentional person is pursuing the room that they're in, people, activities, and such, in order to seek connection. But the inherent fear, again, this is not what threatens us per se, but it is the gap. It's the fear of disconnection. It's the fear of, I am not going to be intentional. I'm not going to be influential. I'm not going to have an ingredient in this room that has value. And if I don't bring something, then maybe I don't have value.
Yes.
And that's where we until we've articulated that, until we've come down into that space where we're like, okay, I'm going to wrestle with this for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to be alone. I'm
Yeah.
afraid to not have. And it's not have things, although that can often become an activity as we pursue the things over the people, because the people
Mm-hmm.
fail us,
Yeah.
because we're all kind of broken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that the idea of finding the freedom to be truly authentically themselves
Mm-hmm.
on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the transition and moving from that motivation into this genuine authentic expression
Mm-hmm.
is, our reading of the room will also determine the kind of connection we come in to make.
Yes.
So
Uh,
maybe we are not going to jump around to 15 different people. We're only going to connect with 3, because the room says, because I'm honest with myself now.
yeah.
I'm honest with the space that, okay, I'm here to connect. Yes. I'm here to bring my authentic version. Yes. But maybe not. Maybe I'm too much for some people in this room in that first meeting.
Yeah. Think as a coach, one of the things, okay, let me back up for a second. If you have taken this assessment, you figure out that, okay, it seems that I'm this intentional person. Now, what does this mean for me? As a coach, there are two cues that I would be encouraging a client to really start looking for. And one is the internal cues, and one is the relational cues. Because when we understand the internal cues of why you're acting the way that you're acting, and it's not the why, okay, that's not actually the correct question. The correct question is, how are the cues showing up internally? How are you performing instead of expressing? How are you performing instead of being authentic? And the back to the relational cue is, telling the other person what connection you're hoping for, having the language to describe that, and being able to communicate that effectively. The question from the coaching side would be, how are you going to relationally cue the other person that you're in relationship in the moment to express your authentic self, your authentic desires, are two huge steps forward of
Mm.
being able to answer, right? I think one thing that we haven't said a lot of, maybe we said it in season 1, is something that we find so telling in community, in terms of the health of the community, is how people communicate or don't communicate. Because if we are talking about being authentically ourselves and we can't tell others in the group we're having a bad day, or I'm super excited because such and such happened, even if it's not related to that community and no one's excited for you, there's adversity that automatically you have to divert your authenticity in that moment to fit in, which is everything that goes against what we're trying to help with, right?
Mm-hmm.
S-
Mm-hmm.
Um, Again, I feel like I'm going off course, but bringing it back to this emotional resonance. Brett, I need your help here in the sense of, when we talk about resonance, how do we how do we capture that in the moment? How do we interpret the emotional resonance?
Well, I think that at its core element, we're trying to find these moments of shift. So we talked at the beginning. I was talking about the upside down triangle, and I didn't even think about the imbalancing and trying to find the centering point, which is I thought was so good when you mentioned it.
Mm.
It's that this is part of it, and
Sometimes I
that
have these good ideas.
well, let's be honest, it's a lot more than sometimes. They but it's this transition point when we move away from pressure towards permission, that the to be something because the room wants you to be something versus to be something because this is your strength. This
Hmm.
is what you bring in operation. And and i and I think that, and I love the intentional person that we met this morning, because having this great conversation, we were having these moments, and then she was like, you need to meet so and so. And I'm like, oh, do I? And then went off and did that. And then she came over to me again. Oh, I just talked to so and so. You need to meet so and so. They need to hear your story. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, to me, this was just her being her. She was connecting people based on the stories that she was hearing in the room. Now, was she doing that on purpose? Was she doing that by permission? Was she doing that under pressure? Don't know. But I loved watching this unfold in real time, as I'm like, oh. And as we left the event this morning, I was like, we need to record this episode today, because this is so part of what we're talking about.
Hmm. Hmm.
That when we're trying to move away from this fear-driven performance,
Hmm.
which most people will recognize because they'll see some of the negative behaviors attached to it, to this, I'm so comfortable with who I am. I'm just going
Hmm.
to bring me, and I'm going to then show up to the people that are there and be me in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And I think that the this doesn't happen very often for an intentional person. There's there tends to be a lot more criticism in their life than there
Mm.
is permission to run free.
Hmm.
Permission to be the court jester, even. Could that be right? Like, the idea of just being the
Yeah.
person that's, hey, I love this. Go for it.
Yeah.
Be fully you. Be authentically you. And I promise that I'm going to be authentically me. And that's when now all of a sudden the goal of the RISE assessment, the goal of being in a communal setting where we are all present, is this plurality of impact.
Yeah.
Is that the people that need to hear the story of permission
Hmm.
versus performance,
Hmm.
they need people to come and advocate for them. They need to hear the stories of our life, of our journey, of our
Right.
process,
Hmm.
and be invited to come in and now come and be. Don't come and perform, just come and be. And snippet towards season 3. We're not going to talk about it, but the idea of what does it mean to be genuinely anchored.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking too far ahead, but I just, that popped into my
Just
head,
another
and
season.
I was like, oh, we got right. And so I think that as we move towards this grounded connection, as we move towards what it means to be right connected to ourselves in this moment, in this time and space, there's some pretty challenging questions that we need to be willing to ask.
Yep. Absolutely. As a coach, for someone who's just discovered that they are an intentional temperament style, what would be some, besides that, I talked about internal cues and the relational cues. What are some of the applications that they can really look at throughout the day to start to really identify how they operate?
Well, I think that
Like
one
a daily
internal
example, for
question
example. Hmm.
exactly is to ask ourselves, am I trying to meet the needs of the room, of the atmosphere that I'm in, or is just being me enough?
Mhm.
Like, do I have to take it up a notch, or is this where it's supposed to be? The idea of being intentional when we're speaking, not just speaking to be heard,
Mhm.
not working from, and this is would be in the healthiest sense as we've moved from our fear to this motivation into this permission based expression. All of a sudden there's a confidence that generates in the intentional person that doesn't need to be the court jester. They're becoming more. They're, instead of being the center of attention, they're maybe the center of the energy.
Mhm.
They're the move factor of how do we get from A to B? How are we going to get our team from here to there? How do we move a client from here to there? Where do we sit in this project pathway? And I think that as that clarity is driven forward, as we are dialed in to the significance of being true to ourselves, articulating our gap or articulating the limitation that we have, where we're honest with ourselves. Hey, I'm not a very good reflective person. And
Mhm.
because I'm not a very good reflective person, a lot of times what happens is I run too far ahead.
Mhm.
But now, as I've spent the number of years kind of working in these tools, I'm no longer trying to be the reflective. I'm now looking for the reflective.
Right.
Hey, by the way, you're a little bit more reflective than I am. Can I share some things with you? Can I get some feedback? Because I'm about to jump off of that cliff and I'm not entirely sure is what at the bottom. And I don't even know if I folded my parachute right. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so instead of finding out after the fact, I'm now trying to find the caution, find my own restraint. Really,
Yeah.
that's what it comes
Yeah.
back to.
I think we haven't mentioned in a while, but these topics of the core temperaments, we sometimes talk about reach, what we talked about last season, we called relational types. uh what we do here is we are really just talking about things on a high level, and we offer a course called Unshakable You, where we will take folks through, clients through the process of, this is where you're at, who do you want to become now that you know what you know, and as you understand yourself, how are you going to open up to understand others around you, right? And that program we call Unshakable You. So if you haven't heard about it before, please take a look at our website at www.empoweryoucoaching.ca. We do have a link there on the front page for Unshakable You, and it will tell you a little bit more about that program. But today we're going to
Can
wrap things up here. You
I
want
want to
to?
I want to add one last quick thing there. That one of the things that we chose to do with Unshakable You that I think is different than a lot of other kind of approaches to coaching out there that we located, that we were able to find, is that yes, we offer one-on-one, but the the way in which we structured Unshakable You was through a cohort, because we wanted you to come and experience it in real time with other people and even ourselves. I've been doing this for a long time, but I love unpacking this for the first time again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I think that is where Unshakable You is. You're getting to wrestle with other people in this small miniature kind of community for a very distinct amount of time. This isn't a forever. We're not asking you to sign up for infinity level of coaching. Hey, come join a community, get some of this foundational core development, and go and live life. Come back and ask questions, but we want you to kind of come, live, and then keep moving.
Absolutely. Thanks for adding that to the little plug. So thank you everybody for joining us today at Fish Out of Water. Um, we have just felt so privileged to have you guys join us on this
Mhm.
journey that we are on with this podcast, as well as in our business Empower You coaching. And we look forward to your comments as always. So please leave them below. Contact us even through the website, because your questions actually help us prepare for future episodes and dealing with clients and so on. Everybody's different. Everybody has different
Mhm.
nuances. And so this is always a learning process for us. That's why we get so excited for the interaction. Not because we are intentional core temperament types, so much as we just we love people and we want to help as many as we can along this journey called life. So as we close, just to let you know, episode 5 is coming up where we talk about the supportive style. So hopefully you can join us for that. And we hope that you have an amazing week because you deserve it.
Be awesome, guys. Talk soon. Thanks. Bye.